Pokemon Pokopia is sold out, like physically sold out. Best Buy, Target, Walmart gone, which is strange because the physical version is a game key card. There's no game on the cartridge. It's basically a box with a plastic download code, and demand got so crazy that last night Amazon quietly raised the price from $70 to $80 for a game card with no data on it, and it's back ordered for 2 weeks. So already something weird is going on, but here's the part nobody is talking about. Pokemon Pokopia is sitting at an 8.5 user score on Metacritic, which is nearly identical to its critic score. And if you remember what happened with Pokemon Legends EA, you know why that matters. The whole defense was Pokemon always gets review bombed. Fans just hate everything. Well, Pokemon Pokopia just proved that that was never true. When Pokemon makes a good game, players show up for it, which means when they didn't make a good game, the players were right to call it out. And despite all of that, there's still a chance that Pokopia isn't selling as well as we think it is. So let's jump in and figure out what is going on with Pokopia, because spoiler alert, I've played Pokopia and I have a lot to say. Let's start with this post over on the Switch 2 subreddit. Convinced to buy Pokopia, shocked that the game key card isn't available within 100 miles of me to buy. Now, I'm in New York City. We're gonna fact check this, because if there's anywhere where this game should be available, it is in one of the most densely populated cities in the world. But the post says, I live in a major US city and the game key card for Pokopia is currently sold out in a 100-mile radius of my location. I'm surprised because when I first saw the preview, I was super meh about it, and honestly I think a lot of people were in that boat, myself included. I've talked about Pokopia a bunch here on the channel, and for many people it seemed kind of like, all right, this is just going to be a niche game for the cozy crowd, and to a certain extent that's true. I'll talk more about my thoughts about the game later in the video, so stay tuned for that. But I think this is a common sentiment that a lot of people had. There are so many videos online about how great it is, so many testimonials of people not being able to put it down even though they aren't into cozy games, and incredible reviews. Now I think this game could be a consistent big seller for the lifetime of Switch 2, so tens of millions sold over the next 6 to 7 years. We'll talk about that later in the video as well. And here's where the commenters jumped in. Game key card has nothing to do with it. The general public don't even know what a game key card is. It's not a shock the highest rated Pokemon game in years is sold out. But here's the thing about that though, and I'll jump into more detail in a minute, but a game being sold out doesn't necessarily mean that it's sold a lot of copies. So for example, if I go to a card convention and I have 3 copies of Summon Skull to sell to the general public and I sell all 3 of them, then I am sold out of Summon Skull. But that doesn't mean I sold a bunch of copies. It means I sold 3 of them, right? So is that what's happening here with Pokopia? Maybe, and we'll talk about that in a minute because we have a little bit of data to go off of, but I think this commenter is jumping to conclusions a little bit early. Someone responds, same happened to Resident Evil. I think these companies are just manufacturing far less physical copies now. Yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about, and this makes perfectly logical sense because as you can see, even on Nintendo's official YouTube channel explaining game key cards, they have an overwhelmingly negative response when you take a look at the like to dislike ratio, and any time that they tweet about this or discuss game key cards, the comments are always flooded with people hating on game key cards. And like, frankly, it makes sense. A lot of the Nintendo crowd are physical game collectors. They like to own their games physically, as opposed to PlayStation or Xbox fans or PC gamers who don't really mind buying digital. Now, it's shifted a little bit over the last 10 years, but predominantly the Switch 2 is still a physical copy system. At most, you could say it's 50-50, which is not what you can say for the other consoles. So again, looking at the online backlash for game key cards, and then you consider the fact that when the Switch 2 launched, a lot of the third-party games that were on game key cards actually sold super poorly. I think a lot of companies are just playing it safe and saying like, you know what, we're just not going to make that many game key cards in case it doesn't sell, and if people really want the game, they'll be forced to buy a digital. Now maybe that's what happened with Pokopia, but again, we'll talk about that later. This user says absolutely, it's by design. Hi Tiger, look who came to say hi. Tiger said you guys have to leave a like on the video and consider subscribing if you want her to get some treats, because she's clearly sleepy. She woke up from her nap just to come up here and bother me while I'm recording, just like she woke me up this morning from her snoring. It was honestly super cute. But let's quickly do a little bit of fact checking here, okay? Let's jump over to Walmart's website and you'll see that for me, Pokemon Pokopia is out of stock. Now, what's interesting is that we see that only 1,000 units have been bought since yesterday, and I'm recording this on Monday. The game came out just before the weekend, and it's been pretty much all over social media Pokopia, at least in my feeds. You guys can let me know in the comments if you're seeing a lot of content about Pokopia, but personally I'm seeing a lot of people talk about this game, and you would think that, okay, the game just came out, people are playing it for the weekend, this is when people would be buying it, and we only see 1,000 sold since yesterday. Now it's true that this is, you know, as a game key card, maybe people are choosing to buy it digitally, but it also could be the case that maybe there weren't a lot of game key card copies produced. I think the evidence is pointing in that direction. Let's take a look at Target and we will see once again that this is, not only is it not available for pickup, it's not available for delivery or shipping, meaning that the Target warehouses don't even have any copies of the game key cards themselves. And I'm not trying to dox myself, but out of all of the Target locations in all of New York City, there is one location in Queens that says limited supply available, not available for pickup. And a lot of times what that means is that it's actually sold out, it's just a miscount or whatever the case might be. So okay, we know that all the Walmarts locally don't have it, we know all the Targets locally don't have it. Let's check Best Buy. Here we can see Pokemon Pokopia switch to physical copy. We have shipping, get it by Wednesday, March 11th, so that is 2 days from now, but it is not available for pickup. And Best Buy doesn't give me the option like Target does to look and see if it's in stock at any stores, so I manually went through, and again, not trying to dox myself, but I went through and looked, and I don't see any Best Buys in New York City that have this game in stock. Let's take a look at GameStop, and here we can see once again this is not in stock within 100 miles of New York City, which is insane. It also says that it is out of stock in my area for delivery, even though it says right here same day delivery today. That is a lie, and it says it will ship in 2 to 3 days. Who knows if that's actually true? I think if Target doesn't have any in their warehouse, I would be surprised if GameStop did. But Amazon is the weird one, okay, because if we take a look here, this was reported over on The Gamer this morning. Amazon has decided Pokopia is an $80 game amid high demand for physical copies of the hit Pokemon game. I say physical copies in quotes because game key cards are not actually physical copies of the game. They are pieces of plastic with a line of code that is effectively a license key. Very frustrating stuff there. But Pokemon Pokopia is a Switch 2 system seller, and it seems like Nintendo might not have anticipated just how popular it was going to be. I think that's a bit too generous of a statement. I think more likely they didn't anticipate how popular the game key card would be, considering all the negative backlash online. The article goes on to say physical copies of Pokopia have already become incredibly hard to find, and Amazon, one of the few sites that still has them in stock, has upped the price from $70 to $80. But here's the thing, I actually don't think they have any in stock, because when you go to order a copy on Amazon, the delivery date is 2 weeks from now, and I have Amazon Prime, and in New York you get same day delivery very frequently, if not next day, or at the very latest 2-day delivery. But we are spoiled here in a major city, okay? So 2 weeks out implies that there is not a copy pretty much anywhere. Physical copies of Pokopia are sold out pretty much everywhere in the United States. However, Amazon has been sporadically restocking the latest Switch 2 exclusive throughout the weekend. It even has some copies available right now. You're going to have to pay more than MSRP for them though, as the price of Pokopia jumped up by $10 on Amazon overnight. At first glance, you might think that the page belongs to a third-party seller attempting to capitalize on the FOMO some of you might be experiencing, as it feels like everyone on the planet has been playing Pokopia these last few days. But no, these $80 copies of Pokopia are coming directly from Amazon. And this is what I was saying before, I feel like my entire social media feed is a lot of gamers playing Pokopia this weekend, lots of memes about the game. Let's not take this article's word for it, let's just take a look at the Pokopia listing over on Amazon. As you can see here, the game for Switch 2 physical is now $80, and the delivery date is between March 23rd and March 30th. I'm recording this on March 9th, okay? This is extremely uncommon for a major metropolitan area if the game is actually in stock. So maybe it's the case that randomly they're putting more units up as they find them in boxes or something. I have no idea, but it's safe to assume that this game is out of stock even on Amazon. All right, but here's the other thing, and this is why I said earlier that this game might not actually be selling as well as we think, because again, with the Yu-Gi-Oh card example, right, we see that on Amazon only 10,000 have been bought in the last month. And I remember checking this listing right before the game came out, and I think it was at 9,000, right? And I know for sure that Amazon updates this, if not every 1,000, but at least every 5 or 10,000, right? So since launch, the game has stayed around the same area. So it sold probably less than 15 or 20,000 in the last month on Amazon specifically, at least in the United States, which is very bizarre. There's only 29 reviews, which is also kind of weird. Yes, it is #1 bestseller, but again, there's really not that much competing with it. If we jump into the Switch 2 games, you'll see second place is Bonanza. The Resident Evil Generation Pack sold out pretty quick. That was another example of a game where yes, demand was there, but really the supply was actually super low. That's what we've discovered with Resident Evil. Christopher Dring is an industry insider of many years, works over at the game business, and he tweeted just a couple of days ago, based on the numbers I've seen for certain markets, I'd be very surprised if Resident Evil Requiem did anywhere near 1 million units on Switch 2. If you guys want, you can go through this Twitter thread, but he's looking at physical sales, digital sales, all that stuff. He's saying digital is not a big percentage of Switch 2's game sales anyway. Again, this is not his opinion. He actually has data that you and I do not have. But then yesterday he also tweeted Pokemon Pokopia was seriously undersupplied at UK retail. Its launch physical sales are not even half of what Legends ZA did. And by the way, Pokemon Legends ZA's launch was actually not very good. It did worse than Scarlet and Violet. It did worse than Sword and Shield. It even did worse than Legends Arceus, the predecessor, even though the install base was way bigger for Legends ZA, and Legends ZA launched in October, whereas Legends Arceus was like, wasn't that like January or February? It was like some random stupid early month in the year. So Legends ZA's launch was actually not good for a Pokemon game. Now the game is massively successful and their budget was like $300. Okay, so they made a boatload of money. The game was super successful, but at launch for a Pokemon game, it actually was not very good, right? And so if we look at the physical sales for Pokopia and it's not even half of that, that's crazy, especially when we reference what he just said about the physical digital split. Digital is not a big percent of Switch 2 game sales anyway. So if physically it didn't even reach half of what Legends ZA did, and that is probably the larger chunk of the sales of Pokopia, the data is suggesting that this game, despite being sold out everywhere, actually might not be selling as well as we think it is. Now, I would not be surprised if this game did have a much larger digital adoption rate based on the fact that it's a super casual game, it's a cozy game, it's the Pokemon demographic, and the physical copy is not even physical anyway. So a lot of people that may have had a sour taste in their mouth about game key cards probably just said, you know what, I don't even care if I get it physically because it's not even a physical copy anyway, so I'll just buy digitally, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 50-50 split for Pokemon Pokopia, or even see it swing in favor of digital, 60-40, maybe 65-35. Some users responding here saying it was undersupplied worldwide. Chris responds saying, so I gather. This user says, I don't think anyone expected Pokemon Pokopia to match a mainline-ish Pokemon game, and game key cards will skew much higher digitally. I'd be impressed if despite that it's still reaching half of ZA. That's wild actually, and I suspect it'll sell far more systems and stay evergreen longer. And Chris says, oh, I wasn't expecting that much. Now I actually went on record, I think in a previous video, I hope I didn't cut it out, but I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Pokemon Pokopia sells almost as much as Legends ZA. I guess that makes me a little bit more bullish on Pokopia than a lot of people are, and maybe I'm wrong about that, right? But based on how I'm seeing a lot of people that I know react to this game releasing, I do feel like this is definitely one of those sleeper hits that the casual gamers are going to eat up, and the people that look at this data a lot more frequently, like you and I, we may be blindsided by how popular this game actually is, which is why I said I wouldn't be surprised if it reached Legends ZA numbers. But now that I'm seeing this data, maybe it won't, right? Maybe it actually won't. Again, here's another tweet from Chris saying, just in, multiple text chains of people running around the country looking for a physical copy of Pokemon Pokopia. Well, you're gonna have to keep looking, buddy, because there are 0 physical copies. There are only game key cards. That's, oh, okay, I guess my joke wasn't very original. Top comment said it. Okay, anyway, all of that to say, Pokemon Pokopia being #1 on the Amazon seller list actually doesn't mean that much, because the other games here, literally no one's buying them, right? Like that's the problem with ranking, like with charts, right? Something comes at #1, it's like, oh my god, it's selling so well, and it's like, actually everything else here is just not selling. I mean, like, look, what are we talking about? It's March, okay? No one's got any money right now. Holiday wasn't that long ago, okay? Yes, it's tax refund season, so maybe there's a little bit of an uptick in spending right now, but I think most likely people are going to use their refunds to catch up on bills or something like that. And what's even more interesting is when we look at the UK software sales chart for the week ending March 7th, okay? This is the first time that we see Pokemon Pokopia on one of these software sales charts because it came out on March 5th, and you'll see here that in its its opening few days didn't even beat Resident Evil Requiem, which was on its second week. So that's bizarre. Now, of course, this is exclusive to Nintendo, whereas Resident Evil is available on all consoles, all platforms, so naturally it's going to sell more. But even still, right, like industry standard for a second week after release is like a 60 to 85% drop in sales, right, from week 1 to week 2, week over week, right? That's what we're talking about here. The second week of Resident Evil Requiem is actually far fewer copies than you probably realize, and Pokemon Pokopia's opening couple of days couldn't beat it. Now, lots of people may have been waiting until the reviews came in because recent Pokemon games frankly haven't been very good, and so a lot of people don't want to trust the critic score. But in this case, it looks like the critics were pretty much on the money. I think maybe they were a little bit more optimistic than they needed to be, but in general the users agree. This game is an 8.5 out of 10, which is tremendous for a Pokemon game. Like, I don't want to downplay this at all. Like, for a Pokemon game having a user score of 8.5, not just the critics. Look, everyone knows that a majority of these critics benefit from access journalism, right? Like, they want to have a good relationship with Nintendo, who does publish this game, right? It is only available on Switch 2, and also it's a cozy game, it's a Pokemon game. Like, this game has all the reason to score really highly from the critics, right? So really there's not that much stock to put into the critic score, but the user score with 566 reviews, that tells a completely different story. This is a very well received Pokemon game, despite it not being a mainline entry in the franchise. Contrast that with Legends ZA and you'll see that, okay, obviously this game wasn't just review bombed, this game was actually a dumpster fire. It actually was not good, and that is portrayed accurately in the user score. Pokemon Scarlet sitting at a 3.5, by the way, which is insane. And even Pokemon Y version, which has the same critic score as Pokopia, has a lower user score. So again, I want to make it very clear, the user score for Pokopia is actually a massive achievement for Pokemon historically. That's just the data, right? I mean, people agree this game is a solid game, and so it's possible that now that user scores are out and the word is out, word of mouth is carrying this game, and maybe people waited until March 8th to spend all their money on it, right? Like, maybe that's possible. Maybe that's why Pokopia is only number 2 here. But either way, I think this is super interesting, right? We have an instance where on Walmart, physical sales are nothing to write home about. They're actually quite bad. And then on Amazon, we see it sells over 10,000 copies, less than 15,000 copies. It lands at number 1, but number 2 is Donkey Kong Bonanza. This sold 6,000, and number 3 is Mario Tennis Fever, which sold 7,000. So again, just because it's number 1 doesn't mean it actually sold that many. In fact, all the evidence is showing that this game is not selling a lot of copies physically, not because the demand is not there, but because the supply is not there. And again, if we look at the data that Christopher Dring shared with us, and he knows that the physical digital split on the Switch 2 is much higher physical than digital, okay, let's be extremely generous to Pokopia and say that the digital sales incorporate 65% of its sales, right? Which is, I mean, maybe it's way more, right? I don't know. We are in uncharted territory at this point. This is all speculation. Is it 90-10? Almost guaranteed not. Almost guaranteed not. Okay, but I can see the sales being 50 to maybe 70% digital, maybe, if I'm really being optimistic here. But all that to say, like, maybe Pokopia is making a splash in certain communities, but it's not selling as well as we think it is, despite all of these sold out listings throughout the entire country and really around the world. So if we can't rely on physical game sales to come to a conclusion on how popular this game is, well, what else do we have? How about online interest, right? Like, okay, well, if there's a lot more online interest for Pokopia than other Pokemon games, then surely the game is probably selling well or better than them, right? I mean, like, let's just break this down for a second. If we see 50,000 Pokemon Pokopia videos on YouTube go up around its launch, and we compare that to Legends ZA's launch, and that had 40,000 videos go up, right? Now, this is purely hypothetical, I'm just using this as an example, right? I think we would say, like, okay, if there's more content being made for Pokopia, the probability is that more people are searching for it, watching the videos, buying the game, playing it, and talking about it, right? Because if you guys didn't know, one of the things that YouTubers do is that if something is getting views, they're going to keep making more content about that, right? There's not going to be more videos for a game that's getting less attention. People are just going to move on. So what we can do is actually compare Pokemon Pokopia's search popularity over on Google and contrast that with other Pokemon games that came out recently. So let's compare Pokemon Pokopia to Fire Red and Leaf Green, which that just came out, Pokemon Legends EA, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. These are the most recent Pokemon games, and we'll see that Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green actually had a higher overall search volume when it came out on the Switch than Pokemon Pokopia. This is March 6th. The game came out on March 5th. So the day following the release, okay, and global time frames and time zones and everything, we can call this the launch of Pokopia. We'll see that Pokopia reached a 73 out of 100. In other words, its search popularity was 73% of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. And what's even crazier is that after the launch of Pokopia, literally March 7th and March 8th yesterday, Fire Red and Leaf Green retook the throne and continued to be more popular in search results than Pokopia. That's crazy. These are 22-year-old games. They're nothing new, okay? People have played them for literally decades at this point, and they are consistently more popular than Pokopia, except for the launch day and the day afterwards. After that, Fire Red and Leaf Green goes back to number 1. Now, you'll see down here in the yellow and green, comparatively speaking, nobody's playing Legends EA or Scarlet and Violet. It is literally 9% of the popularity of the search volume of Fire Red and Leaf Green on launch day. But this is web search. Let's compare this to YouTube search, right? Because I think that tells another picture. And here we can see that actually Pokopia is way more popular on YouTube search compared to Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, this is obviously a no-brainer, right? Because not a lot was actually leaked about Pokopia before it came out, and it's a game in an entirely new genre. Lots of people are going to have questions on how to play, what to do, what's the point, and also looking up reviews. Is the game actually as good as these critics are saying it is? And on top of that, people don't really need guides or content for Fire Red and Leaf Green because they played those games already, probably multiple times. And so why look anything up on YouTube, right? I think that makes a ton of sense. You're not looking up for reviews of Fire Red and Leaf Green because you already know those games. You know how good they are. You know what the deal is. You already know going into those games coming on Switch if you like them or not, right? There's no decision to be made. Whereas with Pokopia, of course, there's a lot more interest for YouTube content. If we look up image search, we'll see that Fire Red and Leaf Green actually way more image searches for Fire Red and Leaf Green. Not sure why that would be the case. If we look at the news spikes here for both of these games, we'll see that the news cycle was way more favorable to Fire Red and Leaf Green, meaning more people were looking up news articles about Fire Red and Leaf Green than they were for Pokemon Pokopia. So in fact, out of all of this data that we looked up, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green generated more online interest in every single category except YouTube videos, which makes sense because you don't need YouTube content for a 22-year-old game. So okay, we can look at the physical sales of the game and say that's just supply constraint, right? That's the game is not in stock anywhere. Of course the sales are going to be down. You literally can't buy it. And that is actually true. That is what is happening here, right? But then when we compare that to the UK sales data, again, this is coming in at number 2. Interesting. We compare that to insiders like Chris Dring, who have a lot more sales data numbers than you or I have, and they don't actually think that this game is going to do as well as Legends EA. And we compare it to the Google Trends data, whether it's web search, image search, news search, all of that does not favor Pokopia over something as simple as Fire Red and Leaf Green. And all of a sudden, the truth seems to be that maybe Pokopia is actually a massive hit amongst the cozy gamer audience, and lots of people are interested in the game, like in the case of YouTube search, but maybe not as many people are buying it as we think because we're seeing all of these sold out listings and headlines across the internet. And what's even crazier is that as I'm recording this video, the $80 listing for Pokemon Pokopia has gotten taken down from Amazon. So was it a mistake? Who knows? Or did they actually genuinely just completely sell out? But now let's talk about my thoughts and opinions on Pokopia, because I have put over 10 hours into Pokopia because my girlfriend wanted to play together. Okay, so we'll talk about that. But real quick, if you made it this far into the video, I really hope you'll consider leaving a thumbs up. It truly does help out the channel a ton. It's literally the best way to support a creator. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, I said that my girlfriend wanted to play Pokemon Pokopia, and she even said that she was considering buying a Switch 2 just for this game, and she did. She actually did. She went and bought Pokemon Pokopia. She went and bought a Switch 2, and oh my god, I have such a crazy story from GameStop about trying to buy a Switch 2. That's probably going to be a whole other video, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. It was actually insane. I had to leave them a 1-star review for that terrible experience. But anyway, she wanted to play the game with me. money. And quite frankly, yes, I hate game key cards. Yes, I do not love buying things digitally. And frankly, I didn't want to give Pokemon any money. And also, this is not typically a game that I would play. I mean, I played Animal Crossing back during the global lockdown because that was kind of a cultural phenomenon and there wasn't much to do. And I enjoyed Animal Crossing. I played it for a little bit every single day for probably about 3 weeks or something like that, less than a month. But I got bored because frankly, I couldn't care to build up my island. So when I started to run out of objectives and I started to collect most of the things in the museum, I was like, okay, well, why would I decorate this island? I'm beat the game. I'm done, right? I got a billion bells. I'm chilling. This game's over to me, right? Like I'm not, this genre is not for me, right? Despite all of that, okay, gentlemen watching, if you're listening, I'm going to give you really good advice here. If your girlfriend really wants to do something with you, then 9 times out of 10, you probably should do it because you never know how much it actually means to them. And also she's probably done some dumb stuff that you wanted to do that she didn't, but she did it anyway. And so sure, if it wasn't for her, would I have played this game? No, I certainly would have not. But I'm gonna be honest here, despite my negative bias going into this game, I mean genuinely, like it's not a game in a genre I would play. I've put over 10 hours into the game and I've found myself playing the game even when she is at work, and that's really weird, right? And there's times where I'm playing and I'm asking myself, I'm thinking like I'm enjoying my time playing, but would I classify it as fun, right? And that's the part that I'm still torn about. This is the thing that, and I've seen other people talk about this when talking about Pokopia. They'll say things like, you know, I've played for X amount of hours and I can't even tell you what I did, right? And there's a lot of times where I'm playing and like, look, some of the quests in the game are objectively bad. They're just stupid bad game design. Like they're literally quests out of vanilla World of Warcraft, and I'm not exaggerating. It's literally go here, get 10 sticks, come back, complete the quest, go here, collect 10 rocks, complete. Like the quests are nothing to write home about. It is like some of the most bare bones basic gameplay ever. And that's why when I'm playing it, I'm like, am I even having fun, or is this just like a glorified checklist that features Pokemon, right? And the answer I think is more so the latter. And the conclusion that I'm arriving at is that, okay, maybe it's not technically fun, but the game is satisfying to play. It is enjoyable to play and it is relaxing. The game is a cozy game after all. So would I say that I'm enjoying my time playing Pokopia? Yeah, I think I am. I don't think that I would be able to suffer through over 10 hours of gameplay of a genre that I typically don't like if I wasn't enjoying something about it, right? But is it fun? I don't know. I don't think so. It's more so like a busy work simulator, and it's just satisfying to like improve the environments of the Pokemon and sort of like not even decorate, but just like fix up the island. I'm not a decorator. I'm not a big decorating kind of guy. Okay. And like, yeah, there's a little mysterious backstory to it, but like it's whatever. Like I did actually read the notes that I've been finding. I've been reading everything Tangrowth has been telling me. Like I'm paying attention to the story, right? But it's not, there's no voice acting, right? So like a lot of the things that I have a problem with a lot of Pokemon games are present here as well, right? The story's nothing crazy. There's no voice acting. The graphics are nothing special, right? The art style is not something that I particularly love, but it's a bit more excusable here because it's a cozy game rather than like a mainline entry where I do expect some sort of graphical fidelity, right? Like with Legends EA, there's no excuse for the game to look that bad. With Scarlet and Violet, there's no excuse for the game to look that bad. In this game, it's like, okay, well, it's clearly like kind of a Minecraft clone almost, and like Minecraft doesn't look very good, right? I know it can look good with certain settings and all this other stuff, but like my point is it's easier to overlook the graphical shortcomings in this game because of what it is, right? So would I say the game's an 8.5? No. Would I say that I'm going to be playing this game for the foreseeable future? No. I think this game will be something I play for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then that's it. I'm gonna quit it just like I did with Animal Crossing. Would I say it's better than Animal Crossing? I think it's more satisfying, at least for me, although it's been years since I played Animal Crossing. So it's been an interesting experience, to say the least, for me playing Pokopia, because it is entertaining and it is enjoyable, but I wouldn't say it's like fun enough for me to really stick with it, right? Like there's just no chance that I'm gonna be like terraforming my islands and like building up skyscrapers and all this. Like no, absolutely not. I will not be doing that. I will not be building houses with little themes in them. Like no, that's not gonna be me, right? I will quit long before that. But from what I've played so far, I get it, right? I understand the hype. I see the appeal, even as somebody that historically categorically would not enjoy this game, and frankly wouldn't have even given them money for this if it weren't for somebody so important in my life wanting to play it with me. And like, look, maybe also, I'll be honest here, maybe I'm biased because my girlfriend's having a great time, I'm having a great time with her, and so having that shared experience gives me that biased outlook on the game, right? Where my experience with this game might not be the same as your experience. So again, if I had played this game all by myself, all alone, I'm not sure I would have made it in 2 or 3 hours, right? But because I have that sort of additional source of motivation to continue playing, I've made it through and I've actually found it to be enjoyable. So it's one of those things similar to Animal Crossing, where if everyone's playing it and people you know are playing it, then that makes the experience even better. But as a single player, solo player experience, I can't say that this game is anything special, frankly. I mean, really, it is Animal Crossing meets Minecraft from what I can tell. I never played Dragon Quest Builders, okay? But it's like a worse version of Minecraft and a similar version of Animal Crossing kind of meshed together, and it's fine. It features Pokemon after all, but I wouldn't say that it's anything truly unique or special, but that doesn't mean that I'm not enjoying it, right? I mean, based on my circumstances and the amount that I've played it, I'm enjoying this game, and I did not think that I would. And if circumstances were different, I think there's many instances where, again, had I played this by myself, I really would not be having a good time. But turns out I'm playing Pokopia, I'm enjoying it. I don't know how long I'm going to keep enjoying it, but for right now, I am enjoying it. I would say if I had to give a rating, it's probably like a 6.5, maybe a 7. I think 7's a little bit more generous. We'll give it a 7. It's solid, and that's just I'm not ranking it like, okay, graphics are at this, gameplay is at this, story is at this. That's just like, if I had to just ballpark it, I'd say it's probably about a 7. Is it worth buying a Switch 2 over? I would say only if you like the genre, right? If you love the cozy game genre and you played a ton of Animal Crossing and you like Pokemon, yeah, you're gonna put probably 40 plus hours into this game and you're really gonna like it. Now, Switch 2s are expensive right now. They're $500, so like, is that worth it for one game? Probably not. But if you're also going to enjoy Mario Kart and like, okay, well, we know Gen 10's coming in 2027, you're probably going to play that, then like, okay, well, maybe you get a Switch 2. But like, for just this alone, I don't know if I can recommend most people to get a Switch 2 for just this game, unless there's other games coming down the pipeline or already on the Switch 2 that you like and want to play. Now, I also have some criticisms for this game. Okay, first of all, this game should not be a Switch 2 exclusive. There is technically no reason for it. This game is not visually demanding. It doesn't have a procedurally generated world like Minecraft. If you can squish down Hogwarts Legacy and run that on a Switch 1, there's no reason that this game can't run on a Switch 1 literally in its current state. It is clear to me now that I've played it for over 10 hours, that the only reason that this is a Switch 2 exclusive is to sell more units of the Switch 2, which frankly is kind of scummy because lots of people can't afford a Switch 2 right now, and the game absolutely could run on a Switch 1, and so a lot of people just can't experience this game purely for profit-driven reasons, right? All their friends are playing it, they can't afford a Switch. They could have made the game for Switch 1, but they chose not to in order to make more money for Nintendo selling more consoles. That sucks. Number 2, there is absolutely no reason that this game should be a game keycard because it is 10 gigabytes, and Pokemon is the most valuable entertainment franchise in the world. They have infinite money. They could afford to manufacture the game on an actual game card where the game is actually there. The game does not require the faster read speeds of the internal memory of the Switch 2. Like, there is technically and functionally absolutely no reason that this game is a game keycard, and you can't even blame AI and the memory shortage because this game was announced as a keycard a long time ago. And the third thing is that the game share experience on Pokopia is not very good. We tried that. We tried the whole thing where, you know, the Switch 2 user game shares it to a Switch 1 and you could play 2-player, and like that whole experience was just underwhelming. It was boring. We were running around trying to figure out what are you even supposed to do. It's kind of just like a worse Minecraft, right? And so if you're gonna do that, just play Minecraft. I mean, the second player functionally can't even interact with pretty much anything. All you can do is place blocks down, and that's kind of it. You actually can't interact with items. You can't even go and like progress the story or anything. Like, you are kind of trapped in this little sandbox area, and the second player, there's not that much that they can do. On top of that, streaming the game to the Switch 1, it was all blocky and blurry, and it was just, the whole experience was not very good. And that's unfortunate because, you know, one of the big sort of talking points around Pokopia is like, oh, well, you don't need to buy a Switch 2 for it because if your friend has a Switch 2, then you can play together. And it's like, that is technically true, but like the experience that you have have doing that compared to the actual game is significantly worse. And so the game share experience I found was, and her as well, it was just boring. There was just not anything really to do there. Again, unless you're a huge creative mode Minecraft enjoyer, you're not going to find much meat on the bones of the game share experience compared to what the game is actually like when you own a copy and you play your own save file. There's a lot more to do. But anyway, guys, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton. And you might think you're subscribed to the channel because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.